Hello, everyone. This is Rob Zaleski with Marketing Profs. Welcome to today's seminar. Before we get started, I'd like to take a minute and thank Dialog Tech for sponsoring today's broadcast. Dialog Tech, formerly known as If by Phone, is a market leader in call analytics and automation. Thanks to smartphones, consumers are calling businesses to engage in conversation at record rates throughout every stage of the customer journey. Dialog Tech provides marketing, sales, and support professionals with a single platform that enables transparency and control over every conversation, so companies can optimize lead generation, acquire new business faster, and increase customer loyalty. If you're on Twitter, be sure to add hashtag #MobileClicksCalls to your seminar-related tweets during or after this broadcast. That's hashtag #MobileClicksCalls. Okay, today's webcast is Optimizing Search, Social, and Display in a Mobile World, from Click to Call to Sale. And our presenters are Blair Symes and Brian Lee. Blair is a demand generation manager at Dialog Tech. He is an expert on cross-channel mobile marketing attribution and optimization. Over the past 17 years, he has published numerous articles, white papers, ebooks, and blog posts on a wide range of topics, including B2B marketing, marketing automation, and search marketing. Brian is a marketing research analyst at Moran Software. He joined Moran Software in late 2013 after working at Google and Braston. He has a passion for big data and finding curious insights in data that can help shape the future. Okay, Blair and Brian, please take it away.
Thanks a lot, Rob, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today on the webcast. Before we begin, I want to give you a quick word about Dialog Tech, although Rob already gave us quite an introduction. So all I will say is that if you're not familiar with the name, perhaps you have heard of If by Phone or Mongoose Metrics. Dialog Tech is the combination of these two companies, and we are the leader in call analytics and automation software for enterprise marketers and agents. And we have around 5,000 enterprise agency customers in a wide variety of industries. So enough about us. Let me pass it off to Brian from Moran Software for a quick word about Moran.
Hi everyone, this is Brian. Happy to be here today, and just to let you know a little bit more about Moran Software. What we do is we're the leading ad cloud in search, and we are the only vendor to combine search, social, and display, allowing advertisers to streamline their advertising budget as well as increase efficiencies across all channels. About 10% of Google spend comes through us, and we manage over $7.2 billion in advertising spend globally. We have a lot of functionality as well as an open platform, allowing us to create, to scale for any advertiser, and we have over 700 million campaign adjustments available in our app.
Great, thanks, Brian. So when we begin today, I wanted to go over some trends and some statistics to show you how the world has truly gone mobile and the impact that that's having on marketing. To begin, these stats should become as no surprise to anyone who takes the train to work or the bus to work. Everyone today has a smartphone. 64% of Americans own one, and that number is only growing. There's going to be 276 million smartphones in the U.S. by 2017. It's a staggering number that's only going up, and it's having a tremendous impact on demand generation and on marketing. But people not only own smartphones, they're also using them in increased usage. So think about here's some stats how mobile compares to television. Today, people are spending more time on their mobile devices than they are watching TV. And they're also spending more time on their mobile devices than they are on their desktop. So when we're talking about digital media and digital marketing, such as search, social, and display, a lot of this is moving to the smartphone and to mobile devices. Ad spending, for example. Mobile ad spending is in the U.S. for search, social, and display is set to surpass desktop this year. And by 2019, estimates show that 72% of all digital ad spending, search, social, and display, will take place on mobile. That's a staggering number, 72%. So marketing is truly moving from the desktop to the mobile device, the smartphone. Let me drill down a little bit, give you some specifics for search, social, and display. So for search today, 50% of all searches are now taking place on mobile devices, and that number continues to grow. 40% of Google paid search clicks, for example, are coming from mobile. So paid search, these are statistics for Google, but they also apply similarly to Bing, is that visits, if you're running paid search marketing, you should know that most of the clicks, 40% of the clicks and growing, are occurring on mobile devices. And organic visits are also the same. 42% of organic visits to your website, or if you're an agency, to your client sites are coming from mobile and from smartphone. For social media advertising has always been heavily mobile, and that's only going up. So today, 69% of Facebook ad spending is mobile. 90% of Twitter ad spending is mobile. That's obviously a tremendous amount. And if you look at the spending itself and the rise in spending in the next 2 years projected, Facebook's mobile revenue is going to grow 50% to about $8 billion in the U.S. Twitter is going to double its ad revenue to nearly $2.5 billion. And even LinkedIn, which is a smaller segment of social media advertising, is still seeing a huge increase in mobile ad revenue. And display ads in general are also following the same path. You can see from the chart how mobile has now surpassed desktop in U.S. display ad spending. And that's only going to continue to increase. You can see that the amount, a staggering increase from slightly under $10 billion to over $25 billion in the next 3 years. It's an amazing growth rate for mobile in terms of display. So what that means to your marketing, in order for you to optimize your campaigns for mobile, I'm going to let Brian provide some tips.
Thanks, Blair. The first thing we want to go into is cross-device retargeting. With mobile becoming such a huge factor for consumers and advertisers today, it becomes very, very important for us to be able to transfer user intent away from the mobile device towards desktop and offline. This is especially true because smartphones remain largely an upper funnel research channel, with consumers doing product research as well as browsing for deals or just general information about a business or service rather than converting. Desktops still remain the highest converting channel, and so it's important that when someone searches or clicks on an ad on a smartphone, we do not lose that intent. We do not lose that information when they later convert. So this way, this increases efficiency across channels, across devices, and what we've seen is, say during a sporting event, we've seen that auto advertisers who successfully cross-device retarget are able to leverage user intent and search information on smartphones to desktop conversions or offline visits of roughly, I believe, 33% higher conversion rate than auto advertisers who did not cross-device retarget. And what we also want to combine this with cross-channel retargeting. What this is basically using search intent to target on, say, social or display networks. This involves things like negative retargeting, which is basically, say someone is searching for a travel deal on Google. This is very expensive, as things like searching for hotels or flights is a very popular keyword. However, once you are able to see that someone is searching for a deal on travel, you do not have to retarget them on search anymore. Instead, you can retarget them on something cheaper, such as social or display, and thus increase the number of ads you can serve to them with the same price, and ultimately increasing efficiencies. What we've seen is through both cross-device and cross-channel, we had one advertiser in the retail industry increase their conversions by about 52% and decrease their cost per acquisition about 21%. So ultimately, this is a very effective way for advertisers to spend less as well as increase the amount of money they are making. And you'll notice on the charts we have to the side, this is basically covering people who retarget cross-channel versus people who do not retarget across channel. So in all cases, we've seen roughly double the click-through rates when you are retargeting for search and display, and versus people who do not retarget. And this is especially the next one is especially relevant nowadays due to the new rollout that Google is doing late April, and that is optimizing for mobile experience. What this means is basically you want to make sure that your mobile experience is strong, and you want to make sure you have separate mobile landing pages, separate mobile ad types such as click to call, click for directions, or any other mobile specific ad types. For example, for display, size is a definite factor. Certain sizes are better for mobile versus other sizes for desktop, as well as for search. The top positions are definitely a lot more crucial for mobile search than for desktop search. Based on our research, we've seen that the top 3 positions are very, very significant for mobile, and after the 3rd position, we see significant drop-off in click-through rate and conversion rate. In addition, things like dynamic call insertion, 70% of mobile searchers use click-to-call, and 61% of these mobile searchers say that click-to-call is an important part of their conversion process, and that we see an average about 8% higher click-through rates when there are click-to-call buttons on the mobile landing page or the mobile ad. And another one is investing in mobile app advertising. As Blair mentioned earlier, the majority of smartphone activity is on a mobile app, and that means that if you have mobile app advertising, you have more eyes on your ads, and that way you see more click-through rate as well as more engagement. Roughly 280% higher click-through rate when you have mobile ads on in-app versus mobile web, and about 50% higher CPM as well. And studies have shown that there's higher brand recall as well as more reach than in the mobile web.
Thanks, Brian. I would also add, if you're going to use display advertising, sometimes marketers who are new to display, if they just look at the value they're getting purely from a display campaign in terms of leads generated or conversion, it can be disheartening. We can see that most display campaigns get a relatively low conversion rate compared to search campaigns or other types of campaigns you might be running. So if you're tracking ROI, you might think, well, I'm not getting a lot of bang for my buck for my display advertising. But what studies have shown, which is really interesting, is that 27% of people who perform a search, 27% of people will perform a search after viewing a display ad. So your display ad can actually be used as a complement to search. It's a way of helping to drive more branded searches for your company. And not only that, when people run a search after seeing your display ad, conversion rates from that search jump 59%. So people who are then running that search after seeing display are more likely to convert. So again, when you're doing display, don't just judge it on its own in a silo. Think of it for what it's doing in concert with your other marketing channels. And don't focus solely on click-through rates when you're looking at display campaigns. So again, 40% of mobile display clicks are accidental. It's very easy when people are touching their screens on their smartphones to accidentally click on a mobile ad. So don't just focus on click-through rates. The last 2 bullets are a study that was done towards the end of last year that showed that ads, if you only optimize your mobile display campaign based on click-through rates, what you would see is a decrease in what they call secondary action. So those calls or people up your business for directions or clicking through to your website for more information, they saw a 69% decrease if you only optimized campaigns to run on apps based on click-through rates. But instead, if you optimized for the secondary actions, display ads on navigation and weather apps, for example, they might get a lower click-through rate, but they get a much higher secondary engagement. So a call or a click onto your website can go up. So don't just focus on the initial clicks. Focus on what happens after the clicks, and we're going to give you some advice on that in a little bit. Obviously, when you're talking about mobile, there's some unique targeting that you can do. Hyper-local targeting is very big on mobile. That's the idea that you can actually target somebody based on their physical location and, in some cases, their exact position in the world. So target in-app mobile ads based on a smartphone user's GPS coordinates, for example. The basic radius, what's known as geofencing. So, for example, if someone is passing by your store, you can serve them an ad on Facebook with perhaps a discount to stop in and incentivize them to come in and shop around and make a purchase. Or, for example, you could target people who recently were in your store or near your store or business but left without making a purchase. So a great example is if someone spent 20 minutes in your store staring at a particular item, in theory, you can serve an ad to them an hour later or half an hour later with a coupon for that item. Those are the types of things that marketers are starting to experiment with, which are very exciting when it comes to mobile targeting. Also, you can target users contextually. So when you think of contextual marketing from a desktop standpoint for display, that's usually the content that's on the web page. So when you're running display ads on the desktop for contextual ads, we're talking about what content so it's an article on business.com about a certain topic. You can run a contextual ad that you think someone reading that topic will be interested in. But when we're talking about mobile, you're actually talking about physical locations when it comes to contextual ad targeting. So what are things that are actually near that person's physical location? So perhaps there's a school or a university near them, or a shopping mall, for example, or your store. You can also target based on the demographics of that area. So if you know that area to be made up of a certain ethnicity or a certain education level or age range is more popular in that area, you can run targeted ads to those users based on that information or based on the census data of that particular area. So the household income, maybe it's a more affluent neighborhood, or the political leanings, for example. If you know that this area votes heavily for one party, perhaps you can run ads based on those. It's very exciting, the options you have when you're talking about running ad campaigns targeting smartphone users. So I wanted to at least go into the idea of phone calls, and especially when it comes to mobile. When you're talking about mobile and smartphone users, a lot of times they're converting on your campaigns by triggering a phone call to your business. So mobile searches result often in higher purchasing intent. So people who run mobile searches want to buy. If you think about when you're running a search on your smartphone, usually that person has a higher intent. They're ready to take some action. There's an immediacy to that search. And that's why people who run searches on mobile are more likely to not just convert into a lead, but also become a client or a customer. But when that purchase happens, it's still mostly happening offline. Although we've seen some great leaps in terms of mobile shopping. Certainly this past holiday season, there's some great data around people who were shopping over Thanksgiving or during the Christmas season on their smartphones and mobile devices. We're still seeing a lot of conversions to mobile marketing campaigns happening offline. You can see from the top how people are either coming to your store or triggering a phone call. That's the conversion, the purchase conversion that's happening from mobile devices. But what's interesting is the bottom part is that the immediacy of these searches. So mobile searches, 65% of the people will complete a purchase that day, and most of it happening offline. So there's an immediacy, and these people who are running searches on mobile and smartphones have high purchasing intent. And more mobile searches usually equates to more inbound calls. This is an amazing stat. You can see people don't always think of phone calls when they think of running digital campaigns, but it's amazing how many people are now converting via phone calls thanks to the growth in smartphones. So last year, 38 billion people in the U.S., there are 38 billion calls in the U.S. from mobile searches alone. That's a very impressive number. But if you look at the growth rate, we're supposed to see in the next 4 years, that number nearly doubled to 73 billion calls directly tied to mobile searches in the United States. So when you think about running mobile search campaigns, think about the phone call and make sure you're optimizing to drive calls. The reason why calls are so important is mobile click-to-call. So most of you hopefully are familiar with the idea of mobile click-to-call, but if you're not, it's the ability to tap on your smartphone screen on a phone number or on a call icon to trigger an immediate call to that business. So if you try to compare what's on the left of the screen to what's on the right, think about somebody who's trying to convert from one of your lead gen campaigns. It's much easier for them to hit a call than it is to try to fill out a lengthy form with their thumbs on a small smartphone screen. So that's the reason why calls are so prevalent. A smartphone is, after all, still a phone, and calls are the natural conversion path from mobile marketing on smartphones. And again, callers have high purchasing intent. This data, Brian touched on a bit of this data in his presentation. It's around people who want to click the call. People are considered extremely important to be able to make a phone call during the purchase phase. But they're also making calls during the other phases of the sales cycle. So if you're running content for a B2B business, for example, and you're running campaigns to try to generate initial leads or initial touches or engagements at the top of the funnel, people still want to call. So make sure you're able to give them that opportunity to call your business directly. And more calls really is great news for marketing and salespeople. Stats show that 66% of sales managers rate phone leads as either excellent or good. These inbound calls are more popular with sales managers than any other lead type. So when you're trying to generate sales leads to sales to make them happy, calls are a great way to do it. Stats show that calls convert 10 times more often to revenue than web clicks do, and it makes sense. Someone who's calling your business is probably someone who's further along the sales process and ready to engage with your sales staff, as opposed to somebody who fills out a web form, for example, to either watch a webinar or download an ebook or some guide or some piece of content. And that's why U.S. businesses are spending roughly $68 billion a year on ads and campaigns just to drive phone calls. It's a great way to grow your sales, is to drive more calls to your business or your client's business if you're an agency. So how do you do that? We've touched on it a bit, but take advantage of call extensions. So if you're running search campaigns, be sure to include call extensions in your ads. And if you're not familiar with call extensions, you can see the examples from Bing on the left and Google on the right. And it's simply either a call button or a clickable phone number that's placed within your ad text that people can call. So instead of clicking on your ad and going to your landing page, your mobile landing page, they're triggering a call directly from the ad itself. And what's an interesting stat is the second bullet there, which shows Google has studies that show that ads with call extensions see an 8% higher click-through rate. So even if they're not calling you from the ad, they're still 8% more likely to click on your paid search ad if you include that call extension. So it's very important if you're targeting mobile, be sure to test call extensions in your campaign. And customize those campaigns for local search. What I mean by local search is a search someone runs on their smartphone that's meant for a business that's near them or in some local area. There are stats that show that up to 50% of all mobile searches have local intent. People are grabbing their smartphones when they're out or on the go, or even when they're at home or watching television, and they're running searches to find businesses, products, services in their area. And when they do that, of course, they're making phone calls. So be sure to include the call now call to action, or test the call to action of call now in your ad text for local ads. Be sure to include, obviously, the local terms like Chicago or whatever area you're targeting in the ad itself, or near me. Target those keywords as well. People usually search for car repair near me, or Greek restaurant near me, or financial service near me. Whatever it is you're selling, make sure that you include those options. Use call extensions, as I already explained, but also use location extensions. So you can see the idea of having a clickable link to directions directly to your store or your service or your retail location, so someone can see exactly how to visit you. And of course, be sure to, you can adjust your bids on Google and Bing based on different locations, different geographies. So if you think that you want to target a certain area, or you think a certain area of the country or a city is more likely to have to call you, make sure that you adjust your bids, of course, accordingly. Including phone numbers on your mobile web pages is critical. So you can see an example from a display ad, but really this covers any kind of mobile marketing. You're driving somebody to a landing page or your website. Be sure to include a prominent phone number that's clickable. You can see an example here. Make it easy for people to call you, because they want to be able to trigger a call. Statistics show that people are less likely to use a brand or refer a brand to a customer or a friend if there's no phone number to call. It's a trust mark that people want to be able to see, and it's also an easy way for them to contact you if they have questions about what it is they're shopping for. It's critical. If you're using Twitter or any social media, Twitter has them now, and Facebook is looking to adopt call buttons. So click the call buttons. You can see two examples there from Twitter, the click the call button. One is for Mountain Dew and one is for Nespresso, and there's case studies on Twitter's site. You can read about the results these got, which were great. But what we're seeing, the Mountain Dew campaign generated 3,500 phone calls from this promoted tweet, and the Nespresso one, it showed that people who responded to their offer, their promoted tweet offer with the call now, were 5 times more likely to actually buy than people who just converted from a regular tweet. So, test the call button in social media. See if it works for you. Test different offers you can use to encourage people to call. It's a great way to generate business. And then if you're actually providing a checkout process, either in your app or on your website, your mobile site, test different checkout options. So you can see Dillard's on the left compared to GNC on the right. Dillard's is a much more stripped down checkout process with no distraction. On the right, GNC has their nav bar still there. At the very bottom, you can see they've got all their social media links. They've got offers for cards. They've got all kinds of things going on. So you want to see if the Dillard's process, or the simple process on the left, is able to reduce shopping cart abandonment, which is a big problem still on mobile, than the checkout process on the right. But what they both do correctly is they have those phone numbers at the top. So if you need help, there's a clickable phone number, either an actual number on the Dillard's case or a phone icon at the top on GNC. GNC also has the number on the bottom. You have to give somebody an option if they get confused, or they have a question or whatever it is, to call somebody immediately and get help in order to finalize their process, their checkout process. Now, we've talked a little bit about phone calls. If you're generating these calls from your different mobile campaigns, whether it's search or social or display or email, whatever kind of campaign you're generating, you want to be able to attribute those calls back to that campaign in order to prove your ROI, not just so you can prove the value of the marketing you're doing either to your CMO, your CEO, or to your clients if you're an agency, but you want to be able to optimize your campaigns based on what's working and what's not, and you can't do that effectively if you can't tell what's generating calls. So how do you do that? You can use call attribution software in order to help. This can enable you to track calls back to any marketing channel, from search, either paid search or organic search, SEO, or display social media on mobile or on desktop, any kind of even offline campaigns like TV, radio, direct mail, content. You can track any phone call back to your business or to your client's business back to that specific source in order to understand what's working and what's not. And here's how it works from the mobile side. So at the top, you can see someone runs a search on Google, Yahoo, or Bing, and visits your mobile page. You can see the phone number that's displayed at the top. Compare that to a second searcher who runs a different search and comes. They see this a slightly different phone number. What they're both seeing are trackable phone numbers that if someone makes a call from that site, it ties that phone call back to the specific source that drove it. So in this case, it would be the exact keyword search, the search engine, the ad and landing page, or page on the website that drove the call. So as a marketer, you're able to understand exactly what it is that's driving phone calls, and then you can optimize based on that. It also works for click-to-call ads. So we talked about the importance of call extension search. If someone's triggering your call, you can still track that call. If they're calling directly from one of your paid search ads, you can still track that call back to the ad. You can tie it to the person who's calling, where they're calling from, when they're calling, what marketing source they're calling from. You can get credit for that call, but also optimize for what's working and what's not. Again, you can run reports very easily to see exactly which campaigns are driving calls and what's not, and optimize based on that. This is one thing that I love as someone who's big into SEO and organic search. You can also see the path somebody took on your website before and after they made a phone call. So you can run reports to show these are the most popular pages someone is coming to first before progressing through your site and making a phone call. You can also run reports to show this is the page that finally converts somebody. So from an SEO standpoint, this is golden information. You can know exactly which are the pages that are generating visits and which are the pages, if they're different, that are generating conversions. And then you can see what's working and what's not. And again, optimize to do better. But you can not just see the marketing source of the call. You can also track information on call duration, times of day, all this other valuable metadata you can use to optimize, especially for example, paid search. If you're seeing calls are coming in more on a certain day or a certain time, that's great information to know. Perhaps you want to be able to up your bid during those times to generate those calls. If those are the times, perhaps people are shopping for you on their lunch breaks. You want to be able to make sure your ad is front and center when they're running searches for your services during your lunch breaks or on the weekends or whatever it is. Know which ones are driving, which are driving calls, and also see how long those calls take. A longer call is often a sign of a quality call, of call duration. So be sure to look at how long those calls are taking, not just optimize on the phone call, but on the quality call, which is very important. And know where those calls are calling from. You can see all of the calls that are coming in for different campaigns, where in the country they're calling from. So for local search, obviously this is invaluable. If you're running national campaigns with local intent or display ads, so you're hyper-targeting, you want to see what's working and what's not, being able to see this visually, where calls are calling from, where you're having your campaigns are most effective, and obviously where they're running behind, where you need to perhaps change your strategy or up your spend in order to generate more calls from that area. Integrating your call data with other marketing solutions is also very important. So many of us use Google Analytics or Universal Analytics, for example. You can pass that call data directly into that platform in order to compare calls with web downloads and web traffic. So you can have a comprehensive 360 view of all your campaign activity and your mobile site activity, your desktop site activity, all on one screen. If you don't have this call data, it's a very critical blind spot, especially in today's smartphone world where people are more likely to trigger a call. And very important if you're using bid management software like Moran Software, Brian's company, a great product. If you're using that, be sure to include your call data in Moran. So you're able to optimize your keyword bidding across search engines, for example. Make sure that you're able to include call data so you know that this particular keyword is generating calls. You should be able to use that as a metric, as a data point, in order to automatically optimize your bids to the keywords that are working and stop spending on the ones that aren't. And lastly, tracking calls through your sales funnel. Many of you use CRM tools like Salesforce or Sugar CRM or Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Be sure to include your call data within your CRM in order to track calls through the sales funnel to revenue. So obviously generating a ton of calls is great, but as marketers it's not as impressive if none of those calls are turning into opportunities, appointments, or revenue, depending on what it is you're selling. So being able to tie that call data in CRM and follow the process, not only follow the process through the sales funnel and then track it back so you can run reports on, I know that my search campaigns generated X amount of leads and Y amount of revenue, or my display campaign, or whatever type of marketing channel you're running, you can actually do ROI reports, including call data within that. So you have comprehensive ones to really fully understand how your marketing is impacting either your business or your customer's business. Now, the last section I'm going to go over is something that marketers don't often think about, and that's the idea that not all calls need to be treated the same way. You can actually treat calls differently, and you probably want to optimize their value and help convert them more to a sale. So the first point is that although I've been talking a lot about the value of calls, we all know that not every single phone call you generate from your marketing is going to be a sales call or a high-quality lead. There are still a lot of calls that are coming in from people who are either solicitors or they're calling the company about a career or some other question. It's perhaps an accidental call. Whatever it is, it's a support call. It's not a sales call. So you don't necessarily want to pass those calls directly to a sales agent or your client sales agent if they're not, there's no sales intent. So what you can do is set up a simple or a complex IVR depending on your business model. An IVR is an automated phone auto attendant that can ask questions you decide best qualify somebody to be a sales lead. So it could be as simple as press 1 to talk to sales and then press 2 to talk to support or something else in order for somebody to show that they have sales intent. Or if you're perhaps a mortgage company or you're in financial services or whatever your business model, if you want to qualify somebody up front with more elaborate questions, you can do that. You can ask them these automated questions before they're passed to sales. And if they don't qualify, you can send them to some other person in your company or to a voicemail box or to another IVR to help them. Or you can pass the ones that are qualified directly to sales. It's a great way to help filter out the non-sales calls and only pass the good ones on to your sales agents, your call center, your local dealerships, whatever your business model. And lastly, routing the calls. This is something that is very exciting. It's the idea that you can route calls differently based on a wide variety of factors. So calls from your marketing or from your mobile site or your desktop site don't just have to go directly into your call center or one number. You can automatically change how that call is routed based on different factors like the caller's location. So if someone's running a local search in downtown Chicago on their smartphone, even though they're visiting from Dallas and they have a Dallas area code, you can still route that call automatically to the closest store in downtown Chicago. It's very exciting, the options you can do. Or you can route differently based on the keywords. So if someone searches for your business and has the keyword careers or jobs in there, you can route that call automatically to your HR staff and not bother sales. Or you can route calls differently based on the web page if you that people search, if that's valuable to your business. You can route calls differently based on the time of day. So calls in the morning can go to one source, calls in the afternoon can go to a different source if that makes sense to you. Or you can even route based on sales agents' performance. So if you have agents who do a better job closing, you can send a higher volume of calls their way to help convert more callers to sales. It really depends on what it is you want to do, but it's very easy to set up, and it's a great way to convert more callers to sales. So I'm going to finish up with a quick case study of a customer of ours who is implementing some of these tactics and the results they got. So we have an agency, a marketing agency called BitCadet that was working with a client, and they were hired to drive more leads and revenue using Google paid search and email blast. So first and foremost, they integrated the results from their campaign directly into Google Analytics, including the call component. So they're able to track calls from their paid search ads, their email, the website, directly tie those back to the source that generated it, and then include that data in Google Analytics so they could help understand what's working and what's not, and actually generate reports to show to their client on a weekly basis the impact that they're having on the business. Secondarily, they set up a really interesting call filtering and routing solution where they sent people from calling from their campaigns directly to an IVR, where they were asked to press 1 to speak to a salesperson. That's just a simple way of, again, qualifying them, filtering out the non-sales calls. That first option was press 1, talk to sales. If that call came in during the morning or the AM hours, it was automatically sent to the sales agents on the East Coast. And what happened was, when the call came in, it would ring that every sales agent's mobile phone at the same time, and the first person that answered the call got the call. If the call came in on the West Coast, same thing, in the afternoon or late evening, the call would go to the West Coast agents automatically because the East Coast agents were no longer working. So the call would go to the West Coast agents. So you've got a hot lead. You don't want to send them to a voicemail box. You've got somebody who can answer the call somewhere else. And this is what happened. So same scenario where it would trigger everybody's mobile phones at once, and the first person who answered got the call. And they would actually, before they answered the call, the system actually whispers to the caller, to the sales agent, the actual source of the call. So before the agent accepts the call, they are told, here's a call coming from Google, here's the keywords they searched for, here's the location of the caller, do you wish to accept the call? So it's a great way to arm the sales agent beforehand so they have knowledge of who's calling and what they're calling about in order to properly, shape the conversation from the get-go. And of course, the agency recorded these calls in order to help prove the quality of the call. So it's not just about generating calls, but generating quality calls. So they were able to record the conversations to get visibility into what was happening on the call. And they were generating reports about how many calls each agent received, how long those calls took, and they were able from there to help work with the client in order to see which agents were doing the best at closing sales, which probably needed a little help and a little coaching. And at the end of the day, the end result was not just an increase in phone leads by 208%, but an actual increase in that client's revenue by 89%. Those are great ROI numbers, which would not have been possible if they weren't able to control and attribute calls back to their market. So I think we're running short on time. Thank you very much for everyone for coming. I think we're going to have a little bit of time for a Q&A session, so I want to hand it back over to Rob from Marketing Prof.
All right. Thank you for all that great information. Questions for our presenters. Now is the time to try to get them into the Q&A box on the left. We're going to go ahead with a few that came in so far. One question I think we definitely want to get to is someone asked, you had the Dillards and the GNC ads showing two different approaches, one with a phone number, one with a phone icon. Do you know of any best practices or any research which would be a better approach?
Well, from my end, that's why I suggested testing them, because you want to see what works for you. But from what I've seen, the more stripped down version is the better version of mobile. The less distractions that you can provide somebody, the better. And if you include the phone call option, then if someone still gets confused, they can make that call and get assistance from you. I'm not sure if Brian is familiar with any data or any best practices around that. But from my end, from what I've seen, the simpler the better. Now, obviously, if you have a mobile app, for example, this people don't have to necessarily put their credit card information in every single time they shop. They might do it the first time, but then you can, one-click checkout is obviously the best possible option if you can provide that. The less, information they have to manually insert, the better. So if you're able to store information and then provide repeat colors with one-click checkout, that's obviously, to me, the best possible scenario.
Right. From what I've seen, I definitely agree with Blair that the more streamlined you can get, the better. As for this specific case, I don't have any real insight here besides, I agree that testing is you definitely want to do a lot of testing to see what works best with your customer base, as it does depend on from website to website. But, definitely the more streamlined you can get, the better the results usually are, although that is not 100% the case.
Excellent. I think we have time to squeeze one more in here. How does someone track a store visitor for ads later if they've never logged in, never put in any specific information or anything like that?
Well, you could do it by... Sorry, no, go ahead, Brian.
So there are third-party tracking pixels that allow you to do this. I don't want to plug Moran, but we do provide one. But basically, what this does is there are tracking pixels on the website that track by user ID, and then that can allow you to basically associate this user with a certain ID and then later find them through whether it is, say, email or whatever. It is usually right now that we are using things like login, OAuth to identify a user, but there are significant improvements in how we are tracking. And it is still kind of a work in progress to figure out how best to track cross-device, but things are improving, and there are third-party solutions that are rolling out as we speak.
I mean, are they asking about like beacon technology as well, like the ability, geo-targeting, the ability to understand that somebody is within a physical store, or cause there's obviously that component of it as well. If you're talking about smartphone users, you can track someone by their physical location down to supermarkets or department stores can do it down to the actual aisle you're standing in at this point. So it's very, very granular, very targeted to understand that someone was directly standing within your store or in front of your store window, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, well, unfortunately, that is all we have time for. I'd like to thank Blair and Brian again for all that great information. If we didn't get to your question, please do feel free to reach out to either Brian or Blair, and they'll be happy to try to clear up some of the other questions that you may have had. We also want to thank Dialogue Tech for sponsoring today's event, and we do truly appreciate your feedback. So if you would take just a moment and click on the link in the slide there to take our survey, let us know what you thought. And thanks everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you all again very soon. Have a great day.